everyone. Again, I'm Salvatore Russo, and this is my paper on Death Becomes the World Symbol of Peace and Justice. So at the core of every culture, there's a shared experience with storytelling. In addition to teaching lessons, storytelling reinforces cultural values. In Karl Kessel's World Without a Superman and Kohei Horikoshi's My Hero Academia Volume 1, each narrative presents the story of the ultimate minority figure who fights to uphold each of his cultural tenets. Superman and All Might, despite being separated through medium and culture, allow readers to explore myths and explore and dispel myths associated with marginalization. Both of these stories deal with the major question of what happens when the symbol of peace and justice dies. This death can be metaphorical or literal. However, in every case, the symbol of peace is no longer able to function as a top hero. In the case of World Without a Superman, Superman dies without any type of heir or contingency plan. He is supposed to be indestructible and unable to die. My Hero Academia counters this narrative with the castration of All Might's powers. Unlike Superman, All Might knows his time as the world's symbol of peace and justice is limited. Because of this, he is actively looking for an heir to inherit his transferable powers. These two texts are adhering to their respective cultures. Critical race theory suggests that people of different races have radically different experiences as they go through life. The American hero Superman dies in combat, protecting everyone from doomsday. For Americans, dying in combat elevates heroism infinitely. Superman automatically becomes the world's greatest hero because he dies for them. The cultural legacy of Japan differs. For Japan, the world's greatest hero knows his time is limited and actively looks for a successor as his powers begin to falter. This ensures the protection for the next generation of Japanese while upholding Japan's foundational notion of maintaining and ensuring the collective's, and by extension, the nation's well-being. Per the American ideologies of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, Superman does not plan for his death because he is living in the present. This makes his death so much more chaotic. On page 7 of World Without a Superman, a crying Lois Lane says, "Damn it, somebody's got to do something. We owe the man more than this." There isn't a plan in place for a critically injured Superman because there has never needed to be one. Superman has never attempted to have medical tests done for a situation like this because he wanted to protect his American dream. The American hero is defined by their secret identities and the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. Superman is only half of the coin, with Clark Kent on the other side. Superman wants a claim to both identities, and that American ideology is what gets him killed. On page 24, Lois Lane supports this by saying, "I can't speak for the rest of you, but I never really thought he could die. He cheated death so many times. It's hard to imagine never seeing his face or hearing his voice again, or taking his easygoing nature for granted." This speaks volumes to the cultural perception of Superman's invincibility. It is impossible to imagine a world where he dies. In this scene, Lois Lane is so clearly shocked by the idea that Superman has died. It is this shock that is at the core of the American ideology. Americans do not expect their superheroes to die or retire. The ripple Superman's lack of an heir leaves is further shown when Jimmy Olsen says, "But he, being Superman, is gone, and I doubt we will ever see another like him." This implies that our world will likely never again have a hero of his caliber. This statement martyrs Superman into the ideal godlike hero. He is so pure and powerful, but he no longer exists. Superman is unable to pass his powers down to another person unless he genetically fathers a child. That being said, Superman does not take on a sidekick of a different strength or power to fill his role as the symbol of peace and justice. There is a disconnection for the future generation and the present. My Hero Academia Volume 1 counters the character of Superman with the character of All Might. All Might is not only losing his strength, but he recognizes his time as a hero is limited. This recognition of fleeting powers, paired with the Japanese cultural legacy, forces All Might to find an heir to secure the future. In Chapter 1, All Might reveals his critical injury when saying, "5 years ago, an enemy did this to me. My respiratory system was nearly destroyed, and my stomach was removed. I voiced it away because of the after effects of those surgeries. I can only do hero work for about 3 hours a day now." We are shown the massive scar All Might has, as well as the real-world ramifications of what will happen when his powers run out completely. This is a direct counter to the Superman narrative, as it shows a prime example of storytelling and culture transcending medium and language. Critical race theory further suggests that literary and narrative theory holds that we each occupy a normative universe from which we are not easily dislodged. Talented storytellers, nevertheless, struggle to reach broad audiences with their messages. This passage rings true in the case of marginalized heroes. We have Superman, who is an alien, and we have All Might, who is not only in the not only in the process of becoming quirkless, which is powerless, but he is also a Westaboo. The individual marginalization and separation of these characters sheds light on versions of the minority struggle through marginalization. This struggle is fragmented and at times inauthentic. They have the potential to come across as inauthentic because their marginalization and minority identity are overlooked because it is so fantastical. Another example of All Might countering Superman's narrative is in Chapter 2. All Might puts an emphasis on the life cycle of a hero when he outlines the rules of his power transfer. All Might starts off by saying, "I believe you are worthy of inheriting my power." The life cycle of the hero is further emphasized on the following page when All Might says, "But my quirk, it was passed down to me, like the Olympic torch, and now it may be your turn." This reinforces the idea of the hero's life cycle because it establishes a history of heroes that have come and gone before, passing this power down. This established life cycle ensures the protection of future generations and, by extension, the nation. In addition to fortifying the future of Japan, All Might clearly outlines the transfer of his powers to Midoriya when saying, "Like when passing the Olympic flame, the new torch burns weakly at first, but the coming tests and trials will fan it. Yes, my own flame will slowly wither and die, my duty fulfilled." This is the life cycle of the hero per the Japanese cultural legacy and storytelling. All Might knows he is going to die one day. He accepts that fate and willingly passes his power to the next generation. The acceptance of a natural life cycle is something Americans culturally reject. Additionally, the American hero's age is kept ambiguous. Even though All Might's age isn't directly revealed, we are given his birthday, and Korikoshi stated that he intentionally wanted him to be older. This is not the case with Superman. He has been around forever, and not only is he seemingly ageless, so is his world of co-heroes. The power of stories is endless. Critical race theory expresses that stories can name a type of discrimination. Once named, it can be combated. If race is not real or objective, but constructed, racism and prejudice should be capable of deconstruction. The pernicious beliefs and categories are, after all, our own. These two texts are both dealing with marginalized characters in different ways. We have the refugee alien Superman and the quirkless Westaboo All Might. These characters highlight different types of marginalized figures. Superman represents refugees and immigrants in America, while All Might is the representation of not only the powerless minority, but by also idolizing American culture. This marginalization is destabilized because they have all the power. They become the symbol of peace and justice, despite having a cultural background that would push them to the fringes of society. Critical race theory further describes the power of storytelling when saying, "Powerfully written stories and narratives may begin a process of correction in our system of beliefs and categories by calling attention to neglected evidence and reminding readers of our common humanity." At the core of these two stories is a hero who will no longer be able to continue as such. It is through their respective mediums that the art of storytelling is able to call attention to what we believe the symbol of peace and justice should be. Additionally, both texts remove their hero from that role. This forces our perception of the world symbol of peace and justice to shift. This paradigm shift creates a world where our heroes have potential to die and retire. This shift disrupts the public pedagogy of the indestructible hero. In a world where our strongest hero can die, social and cultural values of that hero will begin to adjust. They will adjust in a way that reflects death, and that means ensuring heirs for the future. The world of My Hero Academia counters that of Superman's because it acknowledges this new public pedagogy with the life cycle of a hero. Superman's world does not. His death is sudden and messy. Superman's death is used to shock readers and create anxiety. Superman is eventually brought back to life, which further undercuts the public pedagogy shift that My Hero Academia is creating. Storytelling is ever-evolving. This evolution is triggered by the shifting of social pedagogy when exposed to new cultures and cultural values. My Hero Academia borrows the idea of the American hero and places Japanese cultural values onto the heroes within. The massive popularity of My Hero Academia is already starting to shift the American public pedagogy of what a true hero is. Seeing a version of the American hero through the cultural lens of Japan creates a social awareness of how Americans view heroism. Inevitably, death becomes the world's symbol of peace and justice. And death is the one experience every culture shares. Through the cultural exchange of storytelling, we are now able to see how other cultures embody this shared experience. Once we are able to see another culture, we begin to create a cultural understanding and respect for one another as we evolve each other's social pedagogies. This concludes my presentation.